Moving on to another team I'm probably going to rant about a little bit too. The Atlanta Falcons. Next team in this tier. At the time of making this video, I have just found out, not just, but like earlier today, Kirk Cousins has been benched and Michael Penix will be starting their next game. Here's the thing that bugged me, that's pissing me off right now and bugging me about the Falcons and the narrative with them. This idea that the Falcons were smart, we were wrong, and they were actually smart for drafting Penix. Because now that Kirk's playing bad, they can start Penix. Here's why that bugs me and that's stupid. Sure, drafting Penix was a good idea. I'm not going to disagree with that. You still signed Kirk Cousins to a massive contract. You still have all the payment that you have to do with him. You still put your team at a deficit by playing him and him playing horribly. And I made a joke about it in my last video that they don't want to look stupid by benching Kirk too soon because they paid him. But they also don't want to look stupid by not starting Penix because they drafted him with the number 8 pick. And that's really the situation they put themselves in. So no, they aren't smart, secretly geniuses for drafting Penix, and we all owe them an apology. We don't owe them an apology at all. This has gone horribly. Now they need to pray and hope that Michael Penix plays his ass off. And I like Penix, and I'm not even going to say anything negative about him. He very well could. That doesn't change the fact that you gave Kirk Cousins that contract to flop around. And this is the reality of the situation they're in. Whether it was the number 8 pick or it was all of that money and all that capital and the free agent money they had. Your defense still sucks, and you hardly were able to address and fix that. It still sucks. There's still not nearly enough pieces on this team. So whether it was the number 8 pick or it was the 120, or I guess for that one season it would have been about 40, 50 million, something like that. The defense has been this bad for years, and that still hasn't really been addressed. You get Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates in the same safety group. That's sweet. Other than that, the Judon thing's flopped. AJ Terrell is still by himself in the corner room. What else do you have going on? I mean, Arnold Ebiketie been okay, but like Grady Jarrett's older. Like, there's so many problems on this defense. And I look over at the offense, and there's so much to look forward to and so much to be happy about and just aspire to turn into greatness. And it feels like they really screwed the pooch on this. And I had the take earlier, and this is where I will kind of admit my wrong in this. My take for what the Falcons did in the offseason is that they should have either signed Kirk Cousins or drafted Penix. I should have just said they should have just drafted Penix. Because looking with hindsight now, there was no good reason to think Kirk Cousins was going to do well on the Falcons. I mean, there was some, he's so much more beat up with the injury than I thought. And it's like, you can't really predict that. But we're talking, it was all laid out there. A 37, 38-year-old who's never been an elite super clutch quarterback, who's coming off a good season, except for the fact that he missed half the year with a torn Achilles or ACL. I can't remember. Sorry about that. But there's so much writing on the wall showing that this wasn't going to work with Kirk, and I was bought into either one of them. I should have just been bought into Penix, but that's just where I'll admit I was wrong. On to other things. Raheem Morris, he's been okay, but just not what we hoped, not what I hoped. He had this video of his first meeting, his first time addressing the whole team in the offseason. And if you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you've seen it. But if you haven't, you can just Google it. Raheem Morris first team meeting speech or whatever. I watched that video and was fully bought in on him. Like, I was like, dude, the Falcons are easily going to win this division, have 11, 12 wins, and will be absolute dogs. I just loved his mentality and what he had to say. And that's a good aspect of him and his game. I still think it is those kinds of things. He's not elite at fixing and changing a defense. He hasn't made this defense much better. And I'll tell you what, this offense has been a disappointment, and it's not just Kirk. We got to talk about Kyle Pitts. He's a bust. And we can't just keep saying it's that they don't have a quarterback or they don't have a coach or whatever. Kyle Pitts at the position he's at, because I know he's a tight end, but he's like a receiver. Like, he's a receiver. He plays a little bit more tight end at times and stuff. The position he's at, someone that goes with the 4th pick, that is as highly regarded and seen as he was, should make an impact way stronger and way more obviously than he has been, despite the poor quarterback play the Falcons have been dealing with and despite not having a really good head coach. And a good example of that, Brock Bowers. Pretty similar kind of how we viewed them going into this year. We all saw, Brock Bowers and Kyle Pitts in the same realm of level of prospect. At the same position, 2 tight ends that play some tight end but are receiving threats, play some receiver, you move them around, both kind of doing the same thing there. And Brock Bowers, with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and Antonio Pierce, is on pace to destroy tight end records, rookie records, and just records in general for tight ends. Kyle Pitts has done nothing. Just because he's a bust doesn't mean I think he's a bad player. And maybe this is on us. Maybe it's on football media and fans more than anything that we put such high expectations on a player. But he hasn't met those expectations or anywhere near them. And when you consider the fact that Jamar Chase was on the board and Penix was on the board, it makes it even worse. So I think we gotta call it how it is with Kyle Pitts. Someone I loved coming out. I didn't want to say this and admit this. He's just not what we thought. And it isn't just because he doesn't have a quarterback or coach. It's not. Now, Penix could come in and start lighting him up and throw him the ball a whole bunch. Maybe he does play a lot better. That doesn't change what I'm saying necessarily, because this, like I was saying, this position, like the receiver and anyone who's receiving the ball, those positions, and sometimes like cornerback on the defensive side, those guys usually step in, and if they are generational or they are a next level player, they usually step in, and it doesn't matter who it is, they play really good. Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors, 2 great examples from this year. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback. Malik Neighbors is going to get open. You're going to throw him the damn ball. They have that kind of impact. Jamar Chase is one of those guys. Now, he got to play with Joe Burrow, so I don't want to get that cross or anything, but Jamar Chase he was one of those kinds of guys. Kyle Pitts wasn't one of those kinds of guys. At this point in time right now, I'm pretty sure this division is still technically winnable. I don't think they're going to do it, though. I mean, Michael Penix is going to have to be rookie of the year caliber, which he can't win because there's only like 3 or 4 games left, but he's going to have to be that caliber of player for them to really turn this around, in my opinion.